all the knowledge that they are having before we leave them, inshallah. With them, inshallah, we thank all of you, and I would like to remind all of you, those who are not familiar with the laws or rules we have in this house, especially concerning the parking. If you have parked your car on this parking site, you are allowed to park only 3 hours. So bear in mind that after 3 hours you have to move your car, otherwise you get a penalty. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So we begin in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. All praise belongs to Allah, He who created us, sustains us, and guides us through every trial and hardship. May peace and blessings also be upon our Lord, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the best example of man. So alhamdulillah, today we gather here to discuss a very important but often overlooked topic in our community, which is trauma and mental health. Therefore, may this discussion be a source of knowledge and understanding, and may Allah purify our intentions today. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that trauma can be a very deeply sensitive topic. So if at any point in time anyone may feel the need to step out, then they can feel free to do so, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, I am very honored to introduce our esteemed guests today. My husband and wife who are both accredited psychotherapists with years of experience. We have with us Brother Miftau Iddrisu, an accredited psychotherapist in private practice, and he is the clinical director of Manchester Psychotherapist Clinic Limited. He has specialist interest in anxiety, depression, trauma, stress, burnout, personality disorders, and relationship challenges. Brother Miftau also delivers mental health awareness programs called Healthy Sunday on Impact Summer Media every Sunday afternoon on the radio station. So if anyone at all wants to tune in, then they can do so. Alhamdulillah, we also have with us Hajia Fati Abass, who is also a professional psychotherapist working within the NHS and private practice. She specializes in interrelationship issues, anxiety disorders, depression, trauma, long-term physical health conditions. So alhamdulillah, together they've been working in the mental health sector for nearly 30 years, and they've highly impacted people's lives. So may Allah reward them for their efforts as they share their knowledge and insights with us today. To start us off, they will give us a very brief introduction on the topic, covering what trauma is, what its impact is, and different aspects that come with it. And then we'll then move on to the panel discussion. If anyone has any questions at any point in time, we'll give the ability for you guys to ask questions as we're going through, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Yes, I want to thank you all for taking the time to come and listen to this important topic. We thank the Creator for giving us this opportunity to be sat here. It's not our strength, it's His wisdom and blessings that is giving us this opportunity to be here and be sat here. We thank our parents for the effort they put in us and the blessing of it. We are sat here sharing the little knowledge we have. We start with Bismillah, we hope that we will Alhamdulillah. So the topic, trauma, is an interesting one that sometimes gets overutilized. People go to a shop and they say they are traumatized. But this trauma, we're going to look at it in terms of our mental well-being. How does a significant life event impact on your well-being when the event has already happened many months ago? It's because when you think about if you break your wrist, you will have an impact of it. And then when you have an injury, you will see the wound. When you go through a significant life event which is traumatic in nature, you have the scars of it. And the scars of the experience, you don't see it because it's internal, but it affects the choices you make. For example, if someone goes and have before they have a car crash or something like that, they don't have any reason to be fearful of sitting in a car. But as soon as they have a very significant event that almost could have caused their life, all of a sudden it increases their vulnerability. Why is that? Because the experience has triggered their own vulnerability to recognize that they can't take life for granted anymore. Now, the people we treat, their response is very extreme because that event has overtaken their ability to think properly. And perhaps for those people, the experience has been the injury that has happened to them has overtaken their ability to think rationally. And those are the people who come to see us, where something has happened maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but they still can't contest and be able to see that that's a memory that affects us, affecting them. So what we try to do is to try and explain why your brain has already stopped working, why you are reacting to that in this particular way. Now, let's look at it from the perspective of everyday trauma. For example, someone, the experience that they are having difficulties with is their parents not being there. Their parents not being there at the time where they are in a difficulty. Now, when you think about the human brain, and for us as humans, we have the longest childhood. So when you look at a brain of an individual, even up to the age of 21, is still growing. So if life experience happens and there is no support, where the person feels alone with it, then there's a disturbance. And that disturbance can present in a way that the person becomes very overly reactive towards anything that mimics that experience or looks the same. So in that regard, we will say that the person has got what we call a traumatic freeze. The person has been frozen in that particular experience, and that experience, whenever it comes up, it creates a reaction. I'll give you an everyday example. Some people, someone that have witnessed a traumatic experience, anytime they hear the siren, they see the police light, or they hear anybody screaming, the sound that the person used when they witness the impact, it unsettles them. Even though they are no longer at the scene of the trauma, but even watching the TV takes them back to that memory. So you are, for some people, even closing their eyes at night time, they start seeing whatever has happened. But because they can't separate between that day and any other day, now what happens is that because of the overwhelming nature of the experience, the brain cuts off its ability to regulate itself. So even the experience that is a memory, you can't really tell the difference. You close your eyes, you see vividly what happens, you can't sleep. And for our being, when we are not able to sleep, we are not able to regulate ourselves. It's like a car without a battery. When you hear, when we're being told, and if you don't have that sleep, then your brain cannot function. Similar to if you don't charge your phone, you can't use it. So accidentally, we carry these memories with us without knowing. But when we just say, well, I just can't sleep. I don't know what it is, but as soon as I close my eyes, something happens, and I get affected by it. Now, that's a significant event and how it affects someone. Now, I will add one more example, then I move to some of the symptoms. An example is, for myself, I can give you sometimes the trauma of not having. It's not that nobody has beaten you or something like that. It's just when you crave and crave and crave, and you never really get the opportunity to have it at the time you have it. You become an adult, and then you can do it. And you do it through work. Now, because you can earn the money, you are afraid of ever going back to that memory again. So when you start work, you can't stop. Because constantly, unconsciously, your brain is telling you that that day that you are afraid of, which we call state-specific response, even though it's in memory, it's still affecting your life now. They give you an off day, you start to feel restless. But what you are responding to is a time where you didn't have. And now that you are in a different state, that memory is still affecting you. Am I making sense? So that's memory. If you don't address it, you'll be behaving like you're having trouble. You'll be behaving like the way the memory was formed. Unfortunately, when you are growing, your body is demanding more rest. But the memory you are responding to is when you were young. So what happens, as we know from trauma and stress, your body starts to overwork. So you have a memory that is 16-year-old, but you are responding to it in a 40-something-year-old body. So where is your body getting the reserve from? It's digging into the reserves that it have, that is linked with how long you live. We all are fixed with what we call an adaptation energy, which means that is why when you look at it, if a car's petrol runs out, straight away it stops working. But if it's a human brain, you can sleep with a small amount of sleep, but over time it eats away at your reserve. So we don't really respond till later on. By the time you realize everything is gone. Now people ask, well, Sheikh, but Allah has ordained everything, be with its limit. But Allah also informs us that, كَانَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفٌ. So you are, why? Because you are not made of steel. So when you are eating into your capacity to stay well is reduced. That's why we are, even though we believe in Allah, we've been asked, don't run into a road. Why? Because there's a limit to what you can do. So if the one that has created you has given the knowledge to how you keep yourself well, and he's also told us that your body and your well-being is an honor to you. How do you maintain that? And that's why understanding the mental well-being is going to be important for us in terms of not only as a concept for us to stay well, but also part of investment into our well-being. If I recognize that, what I'm responding to at the time is the fact that things were very difficult, and now I've got the opportunity to work, and I'm very good at it. The overtime is coming. I can't see myself stopping. Because that memory is still feeding me. How do I address it in those regards? Now, the first next bit that I'm going to go to is how does these symptoms manifest in our daily choices? Now, one of the key elements that you can see in our symptoms is that we become overly reactive. When someone is telling you that maybe, sweetheart, the way you are working, the kids are not seeing you, even though you see the point in it, you become overly reactionary. Because that little boy inside of you that has seen the hunger can't really stand anybody telling him not to do that. But when you look at yourself as an adult, and you know that, you've already been told that man is created weak. What are you doing to keep yourself well? But this memory is feeding your choices, is not allowing you to see
the consequences of your impact, and the consequence of your behavior, and how it's impacting on you and your current relationship. Am I making sense so far?
Yeah.
So you then, now close one, what about the children? What about who is picking them up? Then it's very interesting how our brain works. You can go through something we call a dual awareness, where you are acting like an adult, but you are acting like a child. So you have two elements, two emotions that are feeding you, the time where you didn't have, and the time that you are with me like this as an adult. Now, if you are not paying attention, the first one can dominate the present one. For example, a child that is 19 or 18 that didn't have a child at the time, they become quite distant with the children they have now. Because the memory they are reacting to, at the time they didn't have children, they didn't have a wife. So if you are not aware, you kind of lose your connection with your children. You also lose connection with your partner. Because the memory you are reacting to is not now, it's then. And that being there, when they gave you that opportunity for the next overtime, when you do thinking of us, no, the memory that I'm responding to didn't have children. So you are blinded in your present state. Until then you come to realize that actually this is affecting your current state. But when you are looking at it, it seems like it's a good thing to do. Now, if you don't know, how are you going to address this issue? That's why we need to be having this conversation. So it comes out in the form of very intense, unregulated response. Why are you telling me this? I'm doing this because of the children. But the children are minor. But you can't be absent and look after them. But the part of you makes you think that the only way to look after them is to go to work. But also, because mankind is weak and you are not made of steel, your body also is affected by what you put it through. Now, if what you are putting it through is something that you have already passed, how are you going to stop? But you can't know what you don't know. So what it does, it affects your current relationships. Your intention is honorable, but even though your intention is honorable, it's still affecting the relationship in the here and now. And that's why, my brothers and sisters, stuff like this is important for us to talk about it, for our own understanding, and also to make sense of why these things affect us in the here and now, and what can we do about it. How are we doing for time? Okay? Yeah. Okay. So, for some people in the symptoms that is repeated, they will have psychological, disturbance about losing things. Psychological disturbance about things going wrong. Some people become obsessive about savings. Some people become obsessive about, you build one house, it's not enough. Gonna build a second one, it's not enough. Gonna build the third one. But you can see that, is it the house or you have something is feeding it? Because how many houses are you going to sleep in? But it just feels like, I need to do it, I need to do it, I need to do it. And that's a state-specific memory. Until you know what it is, you will be building to the end of your life. Because what you are responding to is a memory that will remain the same. Until you are able to understand it and modify it to recognize that, actually, this happened to me many years ago. I'm in a good state now, alhamdulillah. I'm in a different condition, alhamdulillah. But the need to feel like something will go wrong is probably at the time when things have been going wrong. So when you look at things from that perspective, even though it's a memory, it can still influence your life now. If I go to the shop, I remember part of me that felt hungry. When I go to the shop, how it affects me is that I want to buy almost as many of the product that I need. But I also know that I don't need that product. But because now I can afford it, I'm having the urge, but the urge is a memory. But if I don't understand it, I will buy all those things and they're rot. And then I'll go back and buy it again. This is something that happened to me many, many years ago. But it's still affecting me even when I go to the shop. Because it's a state-specific memory. You feel hungry, you see food, almost all that you want to compensate for the other times you didn't have. You know, as someone who has a dad that is a migrant in Ghana, and then you see how migrant gets spoken to. You become an adult that don't get involved in the politics of the day. Why? Because the country has unconsciously become a threat to you. It didn't happen to me, but I saw my father go through that. And now it affects me. I don't want to get involved. But until you come to realize that actually you are in a different environment and your community needs you. If you allow these memories to sideline you, you will not be able to engage, but what you are responding to is a memory of what happened to you many years ago. Now, if you don't know, how are you ever going to override that? And that's why forums like this is going to be very important for our youth to carry this on, to be able to understand. But when we understand, we are able to empathize. When we are able to empathize, then people will come up and communicate their concerns, and we'll be able to get as a community to be able to support each other, not only for the sake of the support, but also see the point in supporting the person with the difficulties they have. Other than that, well, he brought it on himself. But I can be behaving in a way that I think I'm helping, but actually the way I'm presenting is not helping me, it's not helping my community, it's not also helping my children, it's not also helping my distant relationship. So traumatic impact comes up in the form of anger. It also comes up in the form of extreme reactions to things. It also comes extreme reactions to things. It comes up in the form of obsession. You know, I can't do something in smaller levels. Everything that I need to do is quite intense. You know, if my trauma is a lot of times I had to walk and walk and walk and walk. Now that I can afford, when I go to the shop, I can't buy one shoe, I have to buy 4 shoes. But I also don't need 4 shoes. I still buy them anyway. Why? Because it's trying to feed the unmet needs. We have that with our clothes as well. We go, we buy those clothes, and then we come and pile them, and then we get rid of them, we go back and buy them. But we ask ourselves, what is feeding them? Again, it's a time where we didn't have. And now we can. The context is not being regulated. So I felt out of control then when I didn't have it. I still feel out of control now, even when I do have it. Am I making sense so far? You know. So it's recognizing that. So how do you contest stuff like that? It is almost bringing yourself to focus, to recognize that if I'm not making still, and I'm here for a short period of time, how can I develop the best version of myself?
And that brings me to my question,
Okay.
which was, why is it that people hesitate to talk about mental health or talk about their trauma they may have experienced?
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, thank you so much for having us. We are met today to talk about trauma, and Brother Miftau has already said a lot. But I think there is something I need to add to that before we move on to the other questions. In terms of trauma, trauma can affect people in different ways. Let's just take an example of September 11, when the bombing happened in the United States. Thousands of people were affected. But through that incident, as the months roll up, about 20% were able to overcome their trauma, not because they did anything, but it's because of the way they interpreted the whole thing. So they were able to overcome their trauma. But unfortunately, as time went on, there are people who couldn't come out of that trauma. And it could be because of them losing their loved ones, losing their businesses, or it affecting them in different ways. And up to date, there are people who are still living with that trauma. Okay? So when we talk about trauma, what you need to understand is we can all sit in one car going to town, an accident can happen, but we will all see the same thing in different ways due to our upbringing, our mentality of how we see things, how we believe things, and what we take out of that. But when trauma happens, I was saying with the September 11, there are people who had very good support because they could speak to family, they know to seek therapy, or they had a different way of dealing with it. The people who are feeling shy because they don't have to feel those anxiety were the people who were impacted badly. So, with what Brother Miftau has said so far, I want you all to be drawn in by asking yourself, has there been any time in your life where there has been a trauma, but you didn't know it's a trauma, and how long it took? So, when we get into our brains and start asking ourselves these questions, it's going to help you with some of what we are going to share. Because we have to have like a journey whereby everybody is going to have something that they are holding on to in their mind. And then as questions are being asked and questions are being answered, they can try and relate it to themselves in such a way that by the end of this program, there is something they can take out of it. So that is the little bit I want to add on to that before we carry on with the questioning. Thank you.
Okay, so what we've understood from this is it's very important to understand the root cause of your trauma in order for you to be able to behave in certain ways, so to react to certain situations appropriately. However, my question is, why is it that people hesitate to talk about mental health? Why is it that they may feel not comfortable to bring it out?
Thank you. That's a very important question. If you think about the idea that you've been in an environment where you've been asked to be strong all the time, to be strong all the time, even when your mother passes away or your father passes away, you are expected to be strong. But remember, even the Prophet ﷺ cried for the loss of his children. But then you have a community belief that you should be strong no matter what. And you also have your Quran is telling you that mankind is weak. But your societal values are telling you that you should be strong no matter what. So there's a conflict. So why is this a problematic response to us? Because it's a conflict, because you are not made of steel, but there's an impossible expectation on you to be strong.
how are you going to thrive? So you'll be almost kidding yourself. And what does this have on us? It has a very important impact on us. If, let me just ask it, what happens if I carry this water for a minute and put it down? Will it have effect on me? No. Okay. What happens if I carry this for 10 minutes?
It will have impact.
Okay. And then for a year?
Massive.
Okay. Then 10 years?
Massive.
Okay. That's what we call a cumulative impact. The event itself is not heavy, but the number of years you've been carrying it will break you. You start breaking, eating away at your brain, start eating away at your body. But when you look at the event itself, because you are holding on to it, there's no release. So if you're being told to be strong and you don't apply your vulnerability of being human and expressing those things there, these things stays in your body. So over time, it affects you. So the shame you are feeling is a misplaced shame. Cars do break, and cars are stronger than human beings. But you have a belief system that is telling you have to be strong at all times. So you are almost being fed with an information that is humanly unsustainable. And that will have a cumulative impact on you. But we have shame for being vulnerable. Prophet Yaqub was vulnerable. Yusuf was vulnerable. But then you have been told, well, you can't do that. So all of a sudden we carry these things away with us. And what does it do? It eats away at our reserves. You hear that, oh, he's become a shadow of himself, because those things are not expressed. So going back to your question, it's because we associate them with shame. We think that we should be stronger than we are, and therefore we kid ourselves. And then when we kid ourselves, the body can't lie. Like we've shown with the cumulative impact, it will eat away at some point, and then you run out of space. So things that normally wouldn't require being frustrated or angry, because there's no more space, it affects you. Another reason why we don't do it is because when we there's an idea that, if I show vulnerability, then I will be laughed at. If I show vulnerability, then I'm not a man. So what do? We then start to think that any vulnerability is a weakness. So what happens to people in our community? We don't seek help because of this belief system until it's very last minute, because we think we should be strong. So again, the reason why people don't come is that the idea that if I go against it, then I'm not being the person that I'm supposed to be, and therefore we tolerate pain longer than we should. And that affects us in this in a way that we can't respond to. The other bit is that we don't access the help because we don't even see the issue as a problem. So if I'm driving a car and I don't know when the gauge for the petrol it's telling me that I need to fill up, I wouldn't be able to even know when to come up. So it's mental wellness. If I don't know, how can I even seek for help? So we are blindly going through, and then until the body just collapses. And then that's it. Another bit is that we are creatures of habit. So we become used to behaving in a particular way. So changing, how many times have you been told, go to the hospital, and then you say to yourself, well, I'll be all right. Why are you basing it on? The evidence is that you are not well, but you are saying you're all right. What is stopping you you from seeking the help. It's because you don't see the help as important to you, because you don't even know how important your wellness is to you.
So in that case, what are the most common types of trauma in the Ghanaian community that people struggle with?
Can I just ask her?
Okay.
Are you done?
Yes, you can.
Right, so hesitant to seek support for trauma. I guess one of the things that is very, very common in our community is the cultural values overlook our religious values. We've been brought up in a way that even though we know the relevance of the Quran guiding us in so many ways, but at the same time, in our households, the way we've been brought up is more based on cultural values. And when we have cultural values, that is telling us what Brother Miftau is saying, that we have to man up, we have to be strong-headed, we shouldn't show emotions, then automatically, when we are in crisis, we are not going to seek for help. Apart from that, one of the things is people don't know where to go when it comes to seeking support, because the shame attached to it is such that the person doesn't even know what is going on with them. So how are they going to seek the support? They won't. So that hesitation is not just coming from the fact that you don't want to go and seek the support. It's about how do you communicate it? Who do you turn to? And even if we know who to turn to, are we accepting what's going on for us? If you are in denial and you are saying, no, I'm fine, then why would you seek support? And the other thing is to do with spiritual beliefs. When we talk about trauma, one of the very significant impacts is to do with nightmares. So nightmares is when you go to sleep and you feel like somebody is chasing you in the dream, or somebody is coming to get you. Sometimes, unfortunately, you might see your grandmother in your dream. You might see your stepmom. You might see somebody that you've got grudge with in your sleep. They might have a knife. You might see a snake. Always when you go to bed, you feel like somebody is chasing you. In trauma, we call that nightmare. Okay? But a lot of the time, we are like, people go to the extent of attacking people. But this is scientific. All this is in the Quran. Yes, we do know there are evil spirits. But when you've experienced trauma and you've not actually processed that trauma, your subconscious brain is going to wake you up and is going to formulate a lot of images, scenarios, and it's going to wake you up. People wake up in their sleep sweating. Has anybody had that kind of dream whereby they woke up and their heart is pounding like somebody is chasing them? Please show hands if you've ever had that kind of dream. Because it's going to help us. Thank you.
Maybe yesterday.
Thank you. This is it. This is because there might be something that has happened that you've not had the opportunity to actually process it. And it's coming into your dream and telling you, we need to solve this issue. But because you don't even know that, so you might be thinking, why am I having these dreams? So continuously, You are becoming vulnerable. And your mentality is that it must be somebody who is after me. So when we believe with somebody else is doing us these evil spirit rituals, obviously we're not going to seek support for that trauma. So when we talk about the things that make us not to seek help, there are loads, but we can only emphasize on some of them that is going to be more beneficial now. Jazakumullah khair.
My question is sometimes, as what Miftau just said, the upload that we got shows that women are those who used to cry and man does not cry. What is the impact of if the man have to cry but he didn't cry? What kind of impact does it have on them?
Thank you, Chairman, for this beautiful question. Yes, that's true. The thing is, when we don't cry, even though we feel like crying, as Chairman Brother Miftau said, accumulated trauma. So it would be nice to do an experiment if we have a bottle of Coke. I don't think we have a. Do we have a bottle of Coke? Yes, we have it. Please bring that bottle of Coke. Again, that's the one. I can. Yeah? Because for me, I believe in interactive program so that everybody will be more awake and more involved in what we're trying to do. So I'm going to ask you to do something. Shake that Coke. I know you don't want to make mess, okay? But shake it, and that is you feeling like crying, but you're suppressing it. You keep suppressing it, and you're suppressing it, and you're suppressing it. What is going to happen is either that accumulative distress of not showing emotion is either going to come out by you becoming ill, or lashing out, or you can have a breakdown. So, now, are you ready? Right, try to open this book and let's see what's going to happen. But just come a bit, don't come closer to me because I know that's going to happen. Just come in the middle.
Keep on shaking. Keep shaking.
MashaAllah, we've got some plastic, so we're not going to soil the. Okay. Not too much. What's happening? It's resting now. So we are being cautious here, okay? But under normal circumstances, this can go everywhere. Is that the kind of response you want to have? No. But because our societal belief is not meant not to cry, not to show emotion, we carry a lot of anger. We carry a lot of harshness, aggressiveness in our life. But the sad thing is, when you suppress emotions so much, sometimes some of the, unfortunately, the diseases you can have hair is not coming out, it's hiding somewhere in your body. So, as time goes on, it's going to be a bit overwhelming. So I hope this answers your question, but I'm sure Brother Miftau will want to add something to that.
I have a question.
Okay.
Because you made mention of an illness, which is cancer, so does that mean that because of the stress that you're going through, that is what is causing the cancer? Or I don't know.
Okay. I can't, but if you want to, I'll give you that. Yeah. So, illnesses that we do have, okay? Sometimes it can be the food we eat, it can be all sorts of different things. But one of the things that research has shown us is accumulative unprocessed emotions. And in our Black community, we have that a lot, and research has shown that. So it might not just be the fact that the accumulative emotions, but also it's the lifestyle. So imagine if you are carrying a lot of emotions and you are not able to express yourself. Sometimes it affects the way you view the world, the way you view yourself, and the way you view other people. And if this way of viewing the world, yourself, and other people is negative, your choices are going to be negative. How many times do we hear in our community people are saying, well, and we stay with ourselves. Do you understand? We are all complicated. Coming together is about healing. But if we have negative connotation attached to the environment we live in, even ourselves, because we don't even value ourselves, okay, let alone to value somebody else, we are filled with a negative way of looking at things. Obviously, what's going to happen is you are not going to be able to function in a positive way.
So that puts you in a state of distress.
Yes.
So now, I think you really need to help us to overcome that stress.
Inshallah. Inshallah. Okay. Okay, go on.
Most of the times in our societies, a person may be sick or may be feeling some pains. Whenever another person visited him and saying, oh, how do you feel? At times we feel shy to say, oh, lafiya lo. We feel shy to say, wallahi ina jinjiki na gara na damuna. We feel that if you prove this out, society will be criticizing, they will be saying, no, you see. So how can you, advise or address this one?
Okay, that's a very good one. And it's true. That's what Brother Miftau was saying about weaknesses. The mindset, the way we've been brought up, like the question Chairman was asking, men are not supposed to show weakness. And the sad thing is, we stigmatize illness. But at the same time, we believe the Quran is telling us when we have long-term conditions, which is being very unwell, it could be the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to reduce our sins. And we can't even be proud of telling our fellow human being that I'm unwell. So where does the guidance of the Quran come into it when we are actually feeling shy to tell somebody because they will go and tell somebody else, which is not a good thing, but I guess we're going to talk about that. We'll come to that as we go along. But I'm sure Chairman has got a lot to add to what I've already said. So I'm just going to give the mic to him.
Thank you for asking those questions. If you think they've already spoken about the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said the most difficult day of his life is when he went to Taif. That's the man of God. And he's telling you that life can be very difficult. This is the Prophet of Allah. But what about you as an individual? How do you own your pain? Are you stronger than the Prophet? Are you stronger than Yaqub? So, where is that belief coming from? And these are men, spiritual people. And if they can open to their pain and turn to the Creator, what about you as a human being just trying to make ends meet? So we really need to look at this belief system. What is it that is taken away from us? Whereas actually, it doesn't really dent your faith. If anything at all, it increases your faith. Because you've already been told that physically, psychologically, emotionally, man is weak. And they need medication for it. But if you want to transcend it, what are you trying to prove? Are you beyond support? And if you think you are beyond support, what does that do to your well-being? So it's not having to question certain things that we've been given, not to dismiss it, but to try and make sense in terms of how do we develop the best versions of ourselves. Think about Yaqub and his grief. Now maybe you have children, all of a sudden your partner passed away. Now, we can question, do you believe in Allah? But if the Prophet can almost refer back to Taif years after, what about you? So these things need to be looked at from a context of recognizing that you are a human being, you feel pain, and the way to excrete the pain is to own it. You own it by acknowledging that I'm hurting. This is not to say you don't believe, but actually you are following the guidance, because if you don't express those pain, the pain stays in your body, and then the body is your manner. So if you are not looking after the body, you are not almost adhering to the concept of the manner. Am I making sense? Yeah. So you go down and you call Allah the pain, anger, anguish, I'm overwhelmed. Like Musa was saying. Now we are beginning to understand that when we go into psychological treatment or mental health, they tell us that own the stuff, not knowing the Quran has already given us that. Own the pain and give the duty to the one that creates the pain, and then in your sujood, you leave the pain with the one that created the pain. And then you walk away. If there are further help, you go and seek that further help. But if you can't own the pain, like it's been described, that it will remain in your body. That's our time out, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Program inshallah continue by our program will continue after Isha Salat. According to what I heard, we have 10 questions for them. They only answer 2. So inshallah, when we come back, they're going to answer the 8s, inshallah. So the girls, you can go upstairs and pray. As soon as you finish prayer, then you come downstairs. The boys help with the chairs. People are standing outside, want to come in the masjid, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Quickly empty the place for us. Give a space for them. Jazakumullah, our hostess, inshallah. Hajia Fati Abass, inshallah. Ba'da salat, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.